Yesterday, we commemorated Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. This is a day that was declared by Israeli Knesset in the 1950s. There was also an International Holocaust Remembrance Day, but the Israeli Knesset chose yesterday, this period of time between Pesach and Shavuot, this counting of the Omer, that in the first century became for our people a time of mourning. Rabbi Akiva, one of the great rabbis of that period, under Roman rule, his students suffered a great plague during this period of time. And so the Israeli Knesset thought it appropriate to put Yom HaShoah in this period of time of mourning and of sadness. In Israel, of course, it's commemorated by a siren goes off and 2 minutes of silence and ceremonies there at the Holocaust Museum and other places throughout the country. Tonight, we are very pleased and delighted that Kaye and Dick Axelrod, who have been collecting the stories of Holocaust survivors, are going to be here to speak with us to share some of those stories. They're working on a project called Zachor, Remember, and they have been photographing and collecting those stories. As we read after Milchamocha, although last week we celebrated our freedom from Egyptian bondage, we know that when we live in a world in which there's still cruelty and xenophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, the horrors that we still see, unfortunately, in our world today, that none of us are free. And we need to remember these moments in our own people's history, remember so that it shouldn't happen again. Dick and Jerry, thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you so much for the wonderful program we had last night. I look forward to hearing your stories this evening.
Watching the faces of history is an outreach to fewer and fewer survivors of the Holocaust. Remembering the deaths of 6 million Jews and countless others who perished at the hands of the Nazis between 1933 and 1945. There remain today more than 100,000 survivors alive in this country and far more beyond. Photographers in various countries have created images of many survivors, and I was taken by this. I thought that it was time again and reached out to Rick Katz, who was the director emeritus of the Stromberg Chicago Photographic School and a prominent photographer and portrait specialist in his own right, for guidance. Rick asked me what was my interest in this notion of portraiture. And when I told him what is exactly we were interested in, he immediately volunteered to join in the project. Days later, I mentioned it to my good friend Dick Axelrod, who shared much of the same interest. I said that I would be delighted to have him with us, and that was 3, and that was enough. As time evolved and the Illinois Holocaust Museum agreed to be of real help, and we soon realized that there was more to do, and so Emily Axelrod, Jackie Granite, Judy Siegel, and others stepped up to help with cameras and support capturing narration of biographies. All of us are volunteers in this work. Tonight, Dick and I will share just a bit of what we have begun and introduce you to Zachor, the Holocaust Memory Project.
Hey, and I, joined Jerry, and when we talked about this, I have to say my first interest was about portraiture, about which I knew nothing about. But then it was also a chance to do something good in the world. And so we developed this interview process, a way of working with the survivors. And we did that because we wanted to learn from them, but also to develop a relationship with them when we were photographing them. So they were not just subjects, but they were people, and people who were known to us. And so midway through, we would interview people, and midway through the interview process, we would move them into our makeshift studio in the Holocaust Museum. And typically there were 2 photographers photographing at once, which can be a really daunting experience. But I think, speaking for all of us who were involved, it was the emotional impact was, we were really unprepared for it. And it was bigger than any of us had thought it might be. And so at the end of the day, we found ourselves sort of having to debrief the emotions and things that we felt. So what we're going to do is show you a few of the photographs and tell some of the stories, give you just a flavor of what it was like. So this is Johanna Saber, and she was born in Vienna. And in 1942, her mother was sent to an extermination camp in Minsk. Prior to her mother being taken, Johanna was sent to Manchester, England, where she lived with an Orthodox family throughout the war. A Quaker family sponsored her immigration to the U.S., and Johanna did not officially learn of her mother's fate until 2000. Another little anecdote was that while they were in England, her older brother tried to serve in the British Army, but couldn't because he was considered an enemy alien.
Next, Ernie Hyman was born in Mainz, Germany, which had a long established Jewish community. His parents were able to obtain kinder passports for Ernie and his brother. During Kristallnacht, his school and synagogue were destroyed. When he and his brother took those passports, they lived in England throughout the war. His father fought for Germany in World War I, and the family had visas to leave, but they waited too long to leave. They thought nothing would happen to them. And now they are here.
David Overlander, who was born in Poland in 1924, the youngest of 8, and is the only survivor of his family. He was hidden along with some of his siblings by his older brother, Paul. He saw his brother and sister attacked and killed by the Ukrainians. He was able to bribe his brother's German driver to take him out of Germany, and he was then able to immigrate to the U.S. And part of the story about how he got the money to bribe the Germans was they used to get money from family in the States, and his sister hid the money in her underwear. And the night she was killed, the next morning, David went and found her and took the money from her underwear and used that to bribe the driver that got them out of Germany. So now Gary's going to talk a little bit more about Zachor and what this is all about.
So first of all, what you're looking at is the opening of the Zachor website, and the ZachorProject.org is the title of the website. And people ask us often, what can we do to help? How can we be part of this? And we thought about that, and we have several different things that people can do, and we'll make a list with you of them. It says here clearly that Zachor, the Holocaust Memory Project, invites your participation and your support. First of all, if you are a survivor, become a Zachor Project participant, open to Holocaust survivors and liberators. Tell your story, have your picture taken, receive a complimentary photograph from one of our professional photographers. If you're interested, send us your contact information and we'll do the rest. Use the contact form that's in this website to let us know of your interest. By the way, there is no charge to anyone who comes to be a participant in the program. Second of all, if you're not a survivor, refer a Holocaust survivor. You may know people that we haven't met or that we don't know about. So use the contact form to let us know about someone we should know, and we'll take it from there. You can, of course, make a contribution, use our online donation form to support this important work. We're a 501c3 charitable organization, and we'll acknowledge your donation promptly. Please check with your tax advisor for the benefits of donating. All contributed funds support production of displays in appropriate settings. You should know that we have a display coming up in Milwaukee in September of this year. We had originally planned it for September of last year, but you know, we have great plans, and every now and then things just stumble away. But Zachor is staffed 100% by volunteers. So any contributed funds are used for the displays, not for any of us. Provide a venue. If you know of a place in your community, groups or schools or religious institutions or community centers or similar groups where a display would be a great opportunity, please let us know, and we'll be happy to reach out to them and see if we can find the opportunity to make it happen. Down at the bottom, www.zachorproject.org. That's our website, and you can see this information and others about us and who we are and what we're doing. And we hope that you'll reach out and find a way to be of some help to us. Thank you. We ask that people who remember all of these folks, when we interview them and when we pick up their narration, we ask for the last words or the basic, most important thing that they want to tell. And here we have a collection of several of those statements. Talk about anti-Semitism. Never stop. Talk, talk, talk. Don't let your past be your future. Don't take anything for granted. Be careful who you vote for. Never forget, and it's important to educate the young about what happened to us during the war. Be tolerant in whatever situation you find yourself in. Among all the bad things, there are still good people. Talk about anti-Semitism. Never stop.
I used to end my talks by saying, but it can't happen in America. It's very disturbing what's going on now. It's important to combat hate.
So these are messages that we hope we can all take to heart and learn from these people who were survivors. Thank you for your time this evening and the opportunity to share this with you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jerry and Dick, for sharing these powerful stories and reminding us of the lessons and for the work that you're doing on this project and ways in which we can get involved in it. We look forward to being able to see more of the pictures and hopefully even have an opportunity to display some of these at Beth Emmet